So we're going to make this one short and sweet. We have a couple things to get to, some big announcements, some parenting tips on allowance. And maybe first we're going to start with our millennial must-have of the week.
All the Cora Organics line. I really love all of them. And I think Miranda did such a great job with trying to perfect it, trying to make sure it was all organic and really great ingredients.
Yeah, kudos to her. I love the retinol alternative, which I told her in person when we were at the WD. It's like, I really like this retinol alternative. I'm sure she was like, okay, freak.
I think she was very honored to hear that.
So I'm really into two different lip treatments. Well, I love the True Botanical lip treatment. We have already said that a million times. And I've said I like the Primally Pure latte one, which I should be wearing makeup, but I'm not at this current moment. It's just one of those days. But Ilya sent me a lip treatment based on my Substack, and I'm obsessed with it. It's really good. You should try it. It's a cute looking too. It gives you a little sparkle.
Gives you a sparkle, gives you some
Non-toxic sparkle.
Non-toxic sparkle. All right.
So do we want to jump into your fifth child, or do we want to discuss
the child one? That's why I'm feeling like right now.
Tell us how you're doing.
I really thought, it's not going to happen. I wasn't ready to start trying again after the miscarriage last time because that one was harder on me than I thought it would be. And then I thought, well, I'm turning 44, I'll give myself a few months. And then I found out a week before I turned 44 that I was pregnant.
Well, bam.
Oh, bam. This time, at least, I'm not vomiting, which is good. I'm just dizzy, and the nausea comes and goes. As long as I'm consistent with eating, I'm just not having the best appetite.
Also, I've noticed you're weirdly, I don't know if this is a pregnancy thing. You're really on top of things, though.
I've gotten more on top of it. Maybe just because I feel like I have to get it done when I'm in the moment and actually not feeling like.
Or you're just your brain is you've reached new level of clarity. You've unlocked clarity with this.
I've unlocked some clarity with this pregnancy. There you go.
That's what I've noticed as your friend.
Or as my fourth child says, no, she's like, she knew that I was pregnant before I told the kids. Karen was in the car with me and she says, well, I know mommy has a baby in her tummy. And Karen's jaw drops and she's like, what? And I said, how do you know that? Who said that? And she said, no one said it. She's like, I just know that there's a baby in in your tummy right now.
Wow.
I swear, I think they're still connected to the other side. And then she was so excited. She's like, I really wish I was still a baby. And I said, why is that? She said, just so I can keep drinking your milk because it's so sweet. Okay.
How does she remember everything? It's crazy.
I think that kids actually do remember and they just don't verbalize it. Because I've never, not all of my other kids were this verbal. And I don't think we give kids enough credit for knowing they actually remember everything.
Wow. Do you want to talk about how you told your kids?
I did a treasure hunt for them. Was it treasure hunt or scavenger?
Scavenger hunt.
Okay. I did a scavenger hunt for them. And I did little clues in envelopes and I hid them around the house. And then the last envelope was the ultrasound. And the best is they're all looking at it. And then my oldest hadn't seen it. So he was like, what's going on? Because the girls were all
the baby.
The girls were confused. And Chase is like, well, somebody has a baby. And then my oldest, my son, jumped up. He's like, wait, you have a baby? And then the girls are all jumping up and so excited. And then what did my youngest say? She said,
she was jumping up and down.
No, but she said, remember, she's like, the other baby, you had, it had to come out of you because it died. And I knew the baby was going to come back. And this one came back. And so she was so excited.
So cute. So cute. In the video that you sent me, they were doing jumping jacks. Why?
Oh, that was part of the challenge that,
It was
I ran out of
is
clues
that a scavenger hunt, or you just, like, wanted to add in some, like, aerobic activity before bedtime?
before bed. Yeah, a little bit of both. I also was having a hard time thinking of more clues, and I was like, ChatGPT, and I was like, "Give me more." I was like, "Yeah, jumping jacks are good."
I'm like, "Why are they doing jumping jacks?"
I handed them the next clue.
I just wanted to you sent me all the videos, and I just wanted to, like, put them together for you guys to have, like, a video, and I'm putting it together, and my son was watching, and he's like, "Oh, she's having a baby?" And I was like, "Yeah, she's having another," and he's like, "Promise me, Pinky, promise me you'll never have another."
Oh, your son?
My son who just, like, only wants to he's the only child who doesn't want any siblings ever. I'm like, "I'm not
I think the hardest
that
part
that
for
ship has probably sailed, but"
I think the hardest part for tweens and teens is, like, feeling like they're not gonna have enough time. So my oldest, I was very well aware and expecting that, and he was bummed very much at first, and we had a nice conversation about it, and my husband told him he could have whatever feelings he wanted about it, and we'd be happy to talk about it. And then later he came around and he's like, "No, I'm glad that you're having the baby," and, you know, gave my stomach a kiss, and he was very sweet. Uh, but then he asked, he's like, "Well, now that you're pregnant, are you gonna be doing less stuff so you can have more time with me?" I was like, "What makes you think I'm gonna be doing less stuff?" And he's like, "Well, 'cause you're pregnant." So, we'll see. I'm not really great at doing less, but I'll make sure to put in more time with the kids
You're very good
all the
mom.
time.
You're a very good mom. All right, so a lot of people were asking about allowance, and I'm curious about it too. I don't give my kid allowance, by the way.
I think there's 2 sides to it, and you could argue it either way. I do think it's important for kids to take ownership and pick up odd jobs, from, family members or neighbors, and I think that's very important because then they find meaning in that, and they know that it's they earned it, and so they're much more likely to be more motivated in that way. I
I like
think with
that idea. So you find a friend slash neighbor and you say to them, like, my kid's going to come over and offer to wash your windows or your car or something like that.
walk your dog, mow
Margaret
your
Ornstein, I'm
lawn.
coming for you.
What?
I'm coming for my neighbor, Margaret.
There you go. Obviously we don't want our kids to be entitled. We don't, but we want them to feel competent. And, I think that's the hard part is that balance. So with allowance, the problem I find is that parents will often use it as a threat to say, well, you don't get your allowance until you clean your room, or you don't get your allowance until you clean up all the plates. Uh, and so I find that responsibilities in the home, AKA chores, it's a way to contribute as part of the family. And so I never want to use that as a way to threaten. I want the kids to know like this is part of being in the family that we all have to contribute. Uh, do my kids just happily contribute every day? No, of course not. Some children are easier than others, depends on their temperament. With one of my kids, my husband was getting really flustered because she like never wanted to help out and would get really annoyed and say, "Well, I'm not doing that." And he would think, "Oh no, she's entitled. She's not going to do anything. She's going to be like this spoiled person." And I had to explain to him, you have to take a different approach depending on the child's temperament. And so she does much better with positive reinforcement instead of like shaming her or saying like, you have to clean up, you have to do it now. Uh, and telling her, let's all do it together. She often gets distracted. And so telling her, let's do this in the moment first, and then you can go off and make your bracelets or whatever she was doing in the moment, or vice versa, like finish your bracelet. And when you're done, come let me know. So it's just finding the different way to approach it with different kids that makes it easier for them to contribute. And actually, she does really well and wants to help out. It just depends on how you approach it. So when we switched that up, it made it much easier. Now, as far as allowance goes, what I like about allowance is that it gives kids like a repeated, like low stake kind of practice, if that makes sense. Because they didn't earn it, right? They're given it. But they get to figure out how much they get to give away in terms of being generous. And so we talk about that a lot in our family and how we are trying to be charitable and what we can do, not just financially, but also physically and going to go help. My kids will go to like a local farm and help plant things and help clean up the farm. And they go to animal shelters, and play with the dogs. And so there's different ways that you can get kids involved in terms of charitable access and means, not just financially, but it's good for them to put away some of their allowance to give. And you can say, well, you've got to give 25% away, or whatever number feels right to you.
What are we talking about in terms of, like, let's say for your 12-year-old allowance, like financially?
Oh, in terms of how much to give? I think it really depends on the family. I'd say anywhere between $10 and $20 a week, but it adds up, and if you're going to give that kind of money, like that goes towards them spending it on, like if they want to go after school and get, some ice cream or a slice of pizza or whatever it is, or if they want to save up for something. But it can also be as small as $5. There's no special number. I think it's just the act of using that money to save. And for my 12-year-old, he has a bank account now where he has a savings account, and he is saving all of his money in there, and he wants to grow it, and he wants to practice investing it. And so we've talked about doing that when he's a little bit older. But I don't think there's a right number. You could also do it every month, but I find that weekly is better. And so you can also just break it up. You can say $5 a week or $2.50 a week. I don't think there's a magic number. I think it just depends on what is best for you and your family, and
Cool.
figuring out if that works. Personally, I have not done allowance with our kids. They get money from grandparents or for certain special events, and my kids have then saved that money. They've put on farm stands where they've sold produce, and they've, made popsicles and baked goods, and they've sold a lot that way. And so that's how they've made a lot of their money. I want to get back to why I don't pay for responsibilities or chores, because I think that's really important, because so many people do that. When you don't pay for chores, it preserves that intrinsic motivation, right? Because children are part of the family. They're not an employee in a household. They contribute because they belong to the family. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just wanted to highlight that.
I will say one little note with the tour. I mean, you got me into calling them responsibilities at an early age, making sure my son was like making his bed or following that responsibility chart, which we love, and we can link here. But recently he said to us, like, are you guys remaking my bed? And we had to really apologize for that, because that's not
You
right.
were remaking the bed?
I wasn't. I don't really care, but my husband in his OCD maybe was remaking the bed. So
That's really funny. I think you can always just, you don't need to lie about it. You can just say, well, we fluffed it out. We were just dusting it, changing the sheets. And yes, that happens. But I love that you make it in the morning. It makes it much easier for us to go about cleaning it.
yeah, it's sort of a reminder to other parents, like, if you're going to ask your kids to make the bed, don't do it after again.
The only other thing, when to start, if you're going to give an allowance, I like to start typically around second, third grade, when they are learning about coins and money in school. So in Waldorf, they do it in third grade. Sometimes in public schools, it's a little bit earlier in second grade. So that's why I like to introduce it then and not before that, because it's more of an abstract concept. But I do encourage kids, like with my kids, when we were at the farmer's market, I would give them money. So versus like a card, because now kids only know everything about using it. It's a credit card, or you just touch your phone. Now they don't even have a credit card. It's just touching your phone. So they don't even see or understand the concept of like something costs and has a value to it. And so I really encourage parents to actually use physical cash to have your child experience that. And farmers markets are great because farmers, they like using the cash. Something I gave my older kids is like a wooden box. I got it, I think, from Treasures from Jennifer. I don't know if she still sells it though, but it's like a little piggy bank, and it has a slot for spending, saving, and giving. And so I think that is a great way to teach those concepts early on. And then they take ownership because they get to determine, what do they want to spend it on right now? What do they want to save? Like, are they trying to save for some kind of like book or toy or whatever it may be? When you present money too soon, the problem with it is that it can be expected, right? And not connected with any effort. And I find that it can be a source of entitlement early on.
What's too soon?
Before they understand the concept of money, before they practice with you at the farmer's market or wherever you're going, using cash and understanding that goods cost something. Because they don't get, when you're just lifting up your phone and tapping it, that it does anything. They just think, oh, this seems free. Because that's what I would think if you're just touching it with your phone. And I'm always mindful when, like, say we're getting something at the grocery store, they want to eat it right away. First, we have to pay for it so that they understand it costs money. So it's just little things like that that you want to think about doing in your daily life before you actually start with an allowance or start with having them sell things or do odd jobs, so that they can then appreciate the value of it and prevent the entitlement. This podcast does not constitute medical advice or recommendation. Please consult your doctor.